comes away with a victory and heading back to championship weekend. Before we move on here on Orange Overtime, let's take a quick trip around the nation. 6th seed Syracuse men's lacrosse loses to number 2 seed Notre Dame 15-7. The Orange's season is over while the Fighting Irish advance to the national championship. Before we listen to how it all went down, let's take one final trip around the nation. Earlier today in Charlottesville, top seed Princeton defeated Duke 15-7 to advance to the championship game on Monday. Same exact score that we saw in the 2:30 game today. Tigers goalie Ryan Croddick had 20 saves, his second best performance of the season, the co-national goalie of the year, that is. Princeton hasn't played in the championship game since 2002, when Syracuse took the title by 1 goal. It faces Notre Dame on Memorial Day Monday. Over to women's lacrosse, 2 seed North Carolina took down 3 seed Maryland 16-6 yesterday to advance to the national championship. Tar Heels attacker Chloe Humphrey had a team-high 5 goals. The redshirt sophomore has reached that mark in 14 of 20 games this season. Okay, that just about does things for our trip around the nation. We'll take a short break here on Orange Overtime, and when we return, we've got radio replay here. You won't want to miss it.
Delve into the rich tapestry of acoustic-led folk, roots, and Americana music here on 88.3 FM WAER. Enjoy national and international acts as well as local artists every Sunday with host Pete Thomas. Whether you're seeking the comfort of timeless classics or contemporary gems and music discovery, don't miss Common Threads Sundays from 2 to 5 exclusively on 88.3 WAER, your local NPR station.
The final horn has sounded, so let's highlight some of the game's biggest moments. It's time for Radio Replay on WAER.
Welcome back into Orange Overtime. I'm your host, John Baccio, here with you after second-seeded Notre Dame takes down the 6th-seeded Syracuse Orange 15-7 in the NCAA tournament semifinals here from Scott Stadium on championship weekend, a place Syracuse hasn't won still since 1938. It's time for Radio Replay here on Orange Overtime. After knocking down 3rd-seeded North Carolina to punch its ticket to championship weekend, 6th-seeded Syracuse faced another ACC heavyweight in 2-seeded Notre Dame in the NCAA semifinals. And much like the regular season meeting back in April, the Fighting Irish were quick to break the deadlock.
Yago looks around, 3 seconds on the EMO. Back to even strength. Pass outside. Doorstep shot and a score. Brock Behrman from the left of the crease opens up the scoring for Notre Dame. It's 1-0 Irish 4 minutes in to the first quarter.
The opening strike sparked a dominant start for the Notre Dame. The Irish added 2 more goals in the span of just a minute, and this happened.
Straight away, Jeffrey. Righty dodge, gets a check from Kaczynski. Hands free, shoots, bouncer goes. Matt Jeffrey frees the hands in the high slot and goes bottom right corner against the lefty goalie in Jimmy McCool, and Notre Dame has a 4-0 lead with 3 minutes and 7 seconds to play in the opening frame.
After 13 minutes and no score for the Orange, the Cuse turned to its veteran leadership for an answer late in the first.
Gets pushed out, swim dodge, gets held up, flag comes in, tries to free the hands, Roa, step down, bluffs, shoots, score! Back-to-back goals from Finn Thompson, and Syracuse strikes 2 times in less than a minute. It's 4-2 Irish, 64 seconds to play first quarter.
Moments later, SU midfielder Luke Roa ripped home a shot to cut the deficit to 1. Syracuse finally found life and headed into the second quarter down just 4-3. The pace slowed after the break as both defenses forced empty possessions and tough looks. Who could swing the momentum in their favor, though?
Pass in front, Lally shoots, stings the upper 90. A short-handed goal for Notre Dame. And the Irish extend the lead, 5-3 Notre Dame, just more than 4 minutes passed in the second.
His freshman phenom extended their lead, but yet again, Syracuse's veteran answered right back.
Flag flies. It'll go against Notre Dame. Anderson in front to Thompson. Backhand shovel shot goes. The fourth straight game with a hat trick for Finn Thompson. He does it in the first half, and Syracuse is within 2. 6-4 the Notre Dame lead, 5:49 left in the second.
After it trailed 4-0 to open the first frame, SU battled its way back throughout the remainder of the half. Still, though, Notre Dame carried a 7-4 lead into halftime and didn't slow down after the break.
Right to left dodge, phase on. High slot, Sutter steps inside, shoots, scores! Dylan Faison, the true freshman, has given Notre Dame a 5-goal lead. It's 9-4 with 6:48 to play in the third quarter.
A couple minutes later, SU seniors Finn Thompson and Michael Leo brought the Orange within 4 for their first scores in 15 minutes. A Syracuse sophomore followed it up with some more excitement.
Anderson dodges right, spin move, shoots, stings the top corner. Anderson upper 90 for the sophomore, 3 straight for the Cuse. It's 9-7 with a minute and a half to play in the third quarter.
Down by just a pair of goals after the third frame, Syracuse desperately tried to find its first lead of the afternoon with a spot in the title game on the line. But the Irish were far from done. To open the final frame, Notre Dame turned SU's unreleasable penalty into a full-on avalanche. Not 1, not 2, but 3 goals in a blink.
Seymour lobs it for Yago, brings it straight away. Pass in front, wide open, and Miller dunks it in. 3 goals to start the fourth from Notre Dame. And a 2-goal game is a 5-goal game just like that. Luke Miller makes it 12-7 less than 2 minutes into the fourth.
Irish senior Wilma Harris stayed hot to help the stretch after the Irish's surge to 4 unanswered.
Yago down the alley in front. Maharris steps down. Off the post, it went in. Wilma Harris tucks one in the bottom right corner, and Notre Dame is pulling away. The lead up to 6 for the Irish. 13-7, 10.5 to play, fourth quarter.
Notre Dame doubled up Syracuse with the clock winding down, and to top things off alongside 4 assists, Irish attackman Josh Yago wrapped up his stellar performance with a hat trick.
Other way, Yago shoots, he scores on the bouncer. An 8-goal lead for Notre Dame, and Yago completes the hat trick. The Irish on cruise control lead 15-7 with 5:14 to go.
With just 5 minutes to recover from an 8-goal deficit, the Orange were helpless against the Irish's dominance.
And that does it. Notre Dame will play for its 3rd national title in 4 years. The Irish bounce Syracuse 15-7 in the national semifinal. And the Orange's vaunted senior class departs without a ring on a finger.
And just like that, Notre Dame's 6-goal performance in the final frame alone solidified a 15-7 victory and brutally ended Syracuse's hopes of making it to Memorial Day for the first time in over a decade. A tough battle for Syracuse in this one, and the senior class, as our play-by-play man Jake Klein stated, leaves without a ring on its finger. All of the execution and the improvement throughout 4 years, from going without an NCAA tournament to a quarterfinal loss to a championship weekend loss last year, well, the improvement stops in the semifinals once again. 15-7 the final, 2-seed Notre Dame over 6-seed Syracuse. Time for your WAER player of the game. And while the offense was great for Notre Dame down the stretch, there was one guy on the defense that really stuck out for ND, and that was netminder Thomas Ricciardelli. 14 saves, 7 goals allowed. Luke Roa had a wide-open net at the end of the game. Ricciardelli came in and saved it. Peyton Anderson had a wide-open cage right in front at the doorstep. Ricciardelli reaches over and saves it. He dodged all Syracuse momentum with that big stick inside the Notre Dame crease all night long. So Thomas Ricciardelli, the Fighting Irish goalkeeper, is your WAER player of the game after stopping 14 shots and only letting 7 through. Our next broadcast, well, it's not going to be for lacrosse. That'll be for Syracuse football. The first one would be Saturday, September 5th, when SU hosts New Hampshire. We want to thank you so much once again for tuning into WAER's coverage of Syracuse lacrosse for the 2026 season. It has been an absolute ride here in 2-6, where the class of 22 departs gracefully. Some thank yous to hand out before we head over to the double overtime. Griffin Bloomstein, our producer, Nick Evans, our engineer, Evan Simbita on radio replay, and the entirety of our WAER sports desk, who have put in time and time upon each other to put together an incredible season behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone who has made 2026 Syracuse lacrosse so great here on the 8s. Our double overtime is up next with Griffin Bloomstein and Nick Evans. If you want to call in, you can do so at 315-443-2011 to voice your thoughts on this loss and the season as a whole. Once again, that's 315-443-2011. Double overtime take you up until 6:30, so Griffin and Nick have just about an hour to express what they think about this one and the season as a whole. So with that, we'll send it back to our Ostrom Avenue studios. I've been John Baccio here from Charlottesville, Virginia, where Syracuse is down 15-7. Griffin, that's a tough one, isn't it?
It is, sure, John. Good job today, and as well to the rest of the crew down in Charlottesville. Hope you guys get back home safely. Syracuse falls 15-7 in the NCAA tournament semifinals. I thought this was the team. Turns out this was not the team. Syracuse's quest for Title 12 will have to wait at least another year.
Not the way you wanted this one to end, right, Griff, for this group, this senior class. You think this is going to be the year. They're finally seniors. They're putting it all together. A couple of close wins in the first 2 rounds of the tournament against Yale and UNC, but they were no match for Notre Dame. It was pretty obvious from the jump and throughout who the better team was today, and it wasn't Syracuse.
Syracuse, climbed into it, got back close when Notre Dame tried to pull away. Finn Thompson really, really tried his hardest to keep Syracuse in it. In the end, tremendous defense and goaltending by Notre Dame was the difference. Our reporter Nick King will join us from Charlottesville, get us some insight into the emotions down on the field at Scott Stadium, some post-game analysis from Gary Gate, and a whole lot more. It's the double overtime on WAER one more time for Lacrosse 2026. Let's roll.
The game may be over, but our coverage on WAER rolls on. We're breaking down all the highs.
Pass in front, working through traffic. Hiltz ends it! Pure elation in the JMA Wireless Dome. Owen Hiltz, catch, shoot, score, and advance.
The shot wide. Eric Bolivar missed the target. The ball trickles out of bounds. And Syracuse holds on 9-8. It's all over. And for the first time in 9 years, Syracuse is the last team standing in the ACC.
And the lows.
For the first time in program history, Harvard hands Syracuse a loss. The Crimson crawl back from the jaws of defeat. Syracuse, with its closest shot at a championship in over a decade, gets sent home after a 14-8 loss to the Terrapins in the semifinals of the NCAA tournament.
While bringing you the hottest takes along the way.
You need to stick to your basics on offense. If you get an open look, fire it. You don't have to do a little razzle-dazzle. You don't have to do a spin. Just shoot it. Games like that, you're not going to get a Jimmy McCool 18 safe performance every time. You're not going to get these bad turnovers that Syracuse calls. Like 6 calls turnovers isn't going to happen in every single contest, and you can't sort of rely on that. It's going to be really difficult to get that sort of production every game without a response.
There was a calming sense around this team, and that's what you want from a top team who has championship aspirations. You have to know how to close out games like we've been preaching nonstop, and they did that. This is where teams separate themselves from the okay teams to the great teams. And Syracuse did that today. It's plain and simple.
Get your voice heard by calling 315-443-2011 or check out our YouTube and X at WAER Sports Talk. It's the double overtime, and it starts right now.
Welcome into the double overtime on WAER. Griffin Bloomstein here alongside Nick Evans. We got a whole lot of breakdown post-game coverage for you, recapping Syracuse's 15-7 loss to end its season. We'll be up here until 6:30. You want to share your thoughts about this game, you can do so. Call in 315-443-2011. Phone lines will be open throughout. We got Nick King joining us in just a little bit from Charlottesville. Wow. Syracuse lost.
Yeah, it's, man, I mean, it still hasn't sunk in yet, I don't think, the fact that it's over for this group. But I guess it'll have to, Griff, over the course of this next hour, because we're going to have to break down every single angle of it. I'm excited to do this here with you, but yeah, this was just a really tough game all around for Syracuse, and it was pretty clear from the jump that it was going to be a tough one. The way that Notre Dame just came out firing on all cylinders early on with that 4-goal run to start it. But Syracuse was just outplayed pretty much in every element today, other than, at the faceoff X with John Mullen, who had a really nice day. But outside of him, offense, defense, goaltending, Kevin Corrigan's team just clearly the better one this afternoon. And there's really just not much you can say if you're a Syracuse fan other than
shock.
Yeah.
Great run, guys. Senior class. Syracuse was in the gutter lacrosse-wise before they got here.
Yeah.
They had grown to a point where you couldn't really recognize them from the glory days of winning national championships, winning Toward awards, and having All-Americans at every position every season. That's what it was like for the couple years prior. Syracuse hadn't been back to championship weekend since 2013. But now you've been there 2 years in a row. I don't want to say momentum is building because obviously you're losing a lot of guys, but there'll be plenty of discourse and whether this class did what it was supposed to do. Is this a successful season? Was this a successful tenure for them? And if you want to give your thoughts and make a case for one way or the other, Joey Spallina, did he do enough? Did he cement his legacy as one of Syracuse's all-time greats? Call in 315-443-2011. Again, 315-443-2011. Phone lines are open. They will be throughout. It is, shocking still. And I think the big thing, you can say, well, Syracuse didn't score any goals in the fourth quarter. For the first 9 minutes of every quarter, Syracuse didn't score.
Yeah. I mean, this is a really it's a tough way for the whole group to go out, but I mean, this is, I think, it's fair to say a nightmare for Joey Spallina. I mean, to have 0 goals in your last game, as a senior at Syracuse after the 4 years that he's had, he's the all-time points leader. They're back in the Final Four. They're playing against Notre Dame. He got chippy with this team at the end of the regular season, when that game went final and Syracuse
he didn't do it
lost.
today.
No, he didn't.
There's some growth.
He also didn't score today. That wasn't great either. So I think if we're looking at this through the lens of this senior class and what it means for their legacy, if we want to throw that word out right away here, it obviously starts with Joey Spallina, and we of course can dive into the others, but this was all going to start and end with him. We knew it at the start of the season. There were plenty of times this year, plenty of big games where he did answer the bell, but as has kind of been the case throughout his Syracuse career, there are these games against big opponents, oftentimes, in big spots, like this Final Four matchup. We saw it against Maryland last May, where, the game goes final, the whistle blows, and you walk away from the field saying, we just didn't get enough from 22 in that game. He's our best guy. We got to get more from him, and he just didn't have it today. And I think that's kind of the main takeaway that I walk away with after this one, you have to look at your best player after a loss like this and say, okay, what did you do? And the answer today for Spallina was not much.
But he wasn't the reason they lost, and I get what you mean. Like,
what was the reason they lost then?
The whole offense, and it does start with
Sure,
Spallina, but you have to imagine like McCool could have been better. I still don't think McCool was the reason you lost. This is, I don't say it often, but this is the type of game where not one person lost you this game. This was a full team loss on all levels, defensively, offensively, goaltending, coaching. You could say there was just a lot of things that didn't go Syracuse's way, and we mentioned it earlier when we were listening to the game here on WAER. Last week against North Carolina, the first quarter wasn't great for Syracuse. The two bright spots were John Mullen and Jimmy McCool. John Mullen went 6 for 6 in the first quarter against Brady Wambach. People say is the best Fogo in the country. Jimmy McCool went near perfect, allowed 1 goal, but had 4 or 5 saves. The first quarter today, Mullen was great. He went 6 for 2.
He was good the whole game. He showed up today.
But Syracuse's offense didn't show up, and so when McCool slipped a little in that first quarter, and Syracuse's offense didn't score a goal until there was 2 minutes left, and then went on a run. It's like, where's that been? You had 13 minutes to put 1 goal up. Stop a little Notre Dame momentum, and it didn't happen.
Finn Thompson is really the only guy today where, you walk away and say, okay, he should.
Thanks for doing your job.
He got off the bus, right? Yeah, he puts in 4 and. Give credit to the Peyton Andersons and the Spallinas of the world for finding him, in front of cage for those quick stick finishes that we see from him so often. But the rest of the cast, Luke Roa scores 2 goals, but he does it on 14 shots, which is kind of
2 for 14.
Yeah, that's not gonna.
He's supposed to be your best shooter.
Michael Leo 0 points on 6 shots. Yeah, he had the goal taken away, right? I believe. That was his goal that got taken back. And then, like I said with Spallina, he gets his 2 assists. He could do that in his sleep. But you need goals from him in this game. You need your best player to put the ball in the net, at several different points in this game where it got close. They got it to 9-7 late in the third quarter, and then I'm sure we'll talk about the Luis D'Agostino penalty. The 2-minute man up for Notre Dame that went into the fourth, and they capitalized all caps off of that mistake by Syracuse. So
let's do it. Let's talk about it. Was that the reason why Syracuse lost today? Call in 315-443-2011. Share your thoughts. What was the reason Syracuse, fell to Notre Dame 15-7, ends their season the second to final game. What could have been a trip to the national championship on the line. NCAA tournament semifinals loss. Just a brutal hit by Luis D'Agostino.
Yeah.
Shades of that Chuck Kaczynski Georgetown ejection. It might have been worse.
Yeah.
For all good measures.
I do think that was the biggest single moment of this game.
3 goals.
Yeah. Because
of one play.
And Syracuse had momentum. They were down 9-4. They string 3 goals together. Kind of the way they did in the first quarter, right?
Late in the quarter.
We were talking in the studio. And, people were saying, it's 9-4 late in the third. This one's over. Notre Dame has all the... And I said, I don't think this game's over yet because Syracuse's offense, we know these guys can score 3-4 goals in the blink of an eye. And they kind of did at the end of that third quarter there. And now all of a sudden it's a 2-goal game. If you're down 2 after having been down 5 and now you're going into the fourth quarter, I think you sign for that if you're Syracuse. I think you say, okay, this isn't exactly the spot we want to be in, but it certainly could be a heck of a lot worse. And that penalty by D'Agostino, clear and obvious. There's no way to argue against it or argue that you got jobbed if you're a Syracuse fan. Just as clear and obvious as a penalty gets, a cross-check right on the neck.
And it sticks.
Yeah.
Luis D'Agostino is someone that was a very highly rated recruit coming out of high school. Long stick, didn't play a whole lot this season. He wasn't supposed to be playing this season. You look, he's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is his 8th game of the season. And the question is why? Why is he on the field? You have Vinny Bonino, who's, to his credit, has done a also fine job as an underclassman. You have Chuck Kaczynski that, when he's not in the penalty box, has been doing a good job this season. The question is, why are you putting Louis D'Agostino in the game? And it's not like he was just in there for 1 or 2 possessions. He was getting probably the most playing time all season in SU's biggest game of the year.
Yeah. We've talked about this a lot with this Syracuse team, but it kind of comes to fruition here. If anything was ever gonna cost this team its season, it was always going to be the depth or lack thereof, right?
Offensively and defensively,
and especially in the midfield. And when you have like UNC, for example, right? And really, you could say the same thing about Notre Dame, but their depth, their second line middies, their second deep holes, those guys on those teams are young too. A lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores, like on Syracuse, but they're just more highly touted, right?
Yeah.
Notre Dame brings in Dylan Faison, second line midfield, number 1 recruit in the country, right? UNC brings in
and he's supposed to be in high school right now.
Yeah, UNC brings in a second line midfield with 3 5-star freshmen. So it isn't unique for your second line players, your depth to be young. But these other teams just bring in waves of, 4 and 5-star guys. And Syracuse's roster is top heavy. That's the bottom line. And so you're putting a lot of pressure on your best 10 to perform if you're the Orange. And, the thing about human nature and sports is that these guys aren't robots. So they're not going to come out and, give you what you expect them to give you each and every day. They're going to have off days. And today was one for the Orange. And it unfortunately, was one that they're not going to be able to come back and right.
You're correct. Syracuse doesn't have the depth of these other teams. There's a couple of things that go into factor about that. Obviously, Syracuse's number 1s are very, very good across the board.
Can play with anybody in the country, no question.
And are sometimes better than other the team's ones. But you need to have the depth in order to compete. Because when Luke Roa and Finn Thompson are out there 95% of the game, Luke Roa gets a rest, 1 every 2 man up opportunities.
Right.
But and when Matt McEntee comes into the game for an odd possession here or there, that's fine. But when they're on the field so much, and when I talked with 2-time national champion Rick Beardsley earlier this week, he was like, yeah, I trust Syracuse's depth. These are guys that, Bo Kahn's father was an All-American at Hopkins. These guys have experience. Matt McEntee and Tyler McCarthy. These guys are good kids at lacrosse. They're good. But Syracuse, they don't have the scholarships to compete with the North Carolinas and the Notre Dames of the world. Syracuse has 12.6 scholarships in men's lacrosse. When North Carolina has 28, you can't compete.
Yeah,
it's hard.
You have to have different looks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it feels like for so much of every game, it's
that's why they're not getting 5 stars.
Yeah, Spallina, Thompson, Anderson, Leo, Roa, Hoddle. And if that group can't figure it out against a team like Notre Dame, one of the best, probably the best defense in the country, it's going to be tough to win that game. And when you have a guy like Richie Ardelli in goal, I mean,
unreal in the first.
Shame on us. We're 17 minutes in. We haven't really said his name. Probably the best guy on the field today.
I kind of take the blame for this. We were talking about goalies earlier, and I said, and you said, well, I guess 3 of the 4 goalies that are the best are still alive once Duke lost to Princeton.
Yeah.
And I said Croddick was the best goalie. And I was like, well, because of McCool's inconsistencies, Croddick is better. And then, Richie Ardelli's very good, but, Croddick's just consistent. He's that guy. I mean, Richie Ardelli stepped up in the biggest game of the season.
He was magnificent.
You could say he was the reason Syracuse lost.
Yeah, I mean,
his play.
How many chances did they have point blank?
Peyton Anderson.
Yeah.
That was unreal.
Yeah.
Right in front of cage. Beautiful find. Uncovered.
And
Ricciardelli's on the other side,
and
moves over and then scores.
You never see a goalie make that save where he's kind of off to the side, of the goal mouth. He's out of position, and then he sort of does the split, and he like whips his stick up and kind of like jabs at the ball, and it ends up in the cross. That's a save that you never see made. Whenever a goalie's stick is kind of at an angle like that, it just usually doesn't take up enough net, and the ball usually generally finds twine. But when he made that save, I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, they just can't get anything past this guy, and obviously the way he started the game, it kind of felt like it felt like this game was gonna follow the Maryland script from a year ago, and then in the end, it kind of turned out to be the opposite, right? Because the Terps, they got off to whatever it was, the 8-1 run in that game last year, and then Syracuse kind of slowly made it look close as the game went on, and the final of that one was 14-8. But in the end, it really wasn't even that close last year.
This game felt close.
This game felt close through 3 quarters, and then Notre Dame just blew it open in the 4th, and you could tell Syracuse kind of lost their spirit in that 4th quarter, which it was somewhat of a sad way for this group to go out. But I think that's just kind of natural, right? I mean, it has to be just such a heartbreaking, ending to this run for this group.
Yeah, it is, and it's hard when this is a group that we talk so much about, we cover a lot, and this team was supposed to bring Syracuse back. Title number 12. Syracuse falls 15-7. Same score as the Princeton-Duke game. Both, funny enough, both games end 15-7. Not in Syracuse's favor. A trip to the national championship will wait. Title number 12 will wait. Griffin Bloomstein and Nick Evans will not wait for more double overtime coverage because, we could just keep talking all night long until 6:30, though, is when we will stay on the air breaking down Syracuse's loss. If you want to get your voice heard, the phone lines are open and will be throughout. 315-443-2011. That's the number to call. You can join Nick and I up until 6:30. We'll be joined by Nick King, who's down in Charlottesville getting all of that insight. He'll be joining us soon. I think it's interesting, we got the official attendance was 25,000 today. I still didn't really feel like the crowd kind of played a big factor. Like the atmosphere didn't really, I guess we'll hear from Nick, but to us, it kind of seemed like Syracuse is just, because they didn't score at the beginning of quarters, it always kind of seemed like Notre Dame was just in control the whole way, and Syracuse is like showing life every once in a while. You can feel in these games with Syracuse that aren't at the Dome. You can feel the moments when, if they were at the Dome, they would really start to get the ball rolling down the hill, right? After they score 3 straight after giving up the 4 to start, I think if they're in the Dome, they probably ride that run even longer. I think same thing with the 3-goal run at the end of the 3rd quarter, where they go from it goes from a 9-4 game to a 9-7 game. Like, if you're at the Dome and the crowd is just on top of the other team, that's when we see the games like Georgetown this season or Virginia or Duke, especially when Mullen's winning faceoffs. Right. Like that Mullen faceoff carries the crowd and severely. This crowd, to me, just from what we heard here on WAER, it felt like the Syracuse Pops were a little bigger than the Notre Dame Pops, but it just, along the same lines, it's tough to really kind of build momentum if you're Syracuse when you're away from the Dome, because you get used to playing in that building where there's just so much energy on your side, and it's unlike any other atmosphere in the entire sport. And then you go elsewhere, and it's hard to garner, right? And Gates talked about it this year. Like, I don't remember exactly what game it was ahead of. It may have actually been ahead of the Notre Dame regular season finale, but Gate was asked about which area he thinks he's improved as a coach this year, or what he's had to work on, may have been the way the question was framed. And he talked about getting the team ready to play road games, was a thing that he was focused on. He wanted to get their mentality right to play on the road. They talked a lot about this week about the mental aspect, and Joey got asked, and Coach Gate was asked, and Coach Gates, one of his projects, he called it, this season with the guys was mental and trying to get the guys in the right headspace to go play, like you said, on the road.
Away from the dome, yep.
And, in good competition. Used to be seeing scrums happen and break out and trying, like, let's avoid that. Doesn't help with the mental aspect. And Joey said it as well, that he, was working with a mental professional and was trying to get in the right headspace to play. And it's something that we've seen all season. It kind of seemed today that, once Notre Dame got ahead, Syracuse went on these mini runs, but, like, you could kind of tell, like it was drawing on these guys. That penalty, the 3, watching your team surrender 3 goals on one man down.
Yeah.
As someone, as Joey, who's just standing on the other side of the field just watching.
Yep.
And it was a 2-goal game. And you're just like, all right, well, now it's a 3-goal game. Nope, wait, now it's a 4-goal game. And now it's a 5-goal game and you haven't touched the ball.
Yeah.
That it's just so hard.
Yeah.
Like, that just must be killer.
This truly was a game of runs. And Notre Dame just had more of them than Syracuse did, and it was partially because of the Syracuse mistakes. Like we talked about, I'm thinking about how the 2 coordinators feel right now. You've got Pat March, the associate head coach, and, runs the offense, John O'Derna, who runs the defense. Obviously, neither one of them can be happy. The team just lost and the season's over. But I think if you're Pat March, this is kind of an all-around failure. Where I think if you're O'Derna, you're kind of just looking at your goalie and then the penalties. I feel like it is sort of like
composure,
yeah,
for sure.
That's where each, I think, coordinator probably feels like their side fell short.
We mentioned, Notre Dame's offense played well. Obviously, Josh Yago, 7 points, 3 goals and 4 assists.
He's a really good
the
player.
one guy that you needed to stop was him.
Mm-hmm.
And Syracuse did a very good job of stopping Dom Petramalo last week. A lot of Jordan Beck was on him. And so, like, it was besides Yago's 3 goals, the 4 assists, that proves that they were spreading the wealth. And I guess Syracuse didn't really get beat by one person, and it was all him.
I thought Brock Behrman was super impressive as well. The attackman for Notre Dame, he had 2 goals and 2 assists. He's a really well-built kid. He's not that tall, but he's big and strong. And he kind of, I just thought he was active the entire day. I mean, 21 in white to me jumped off the screen the entire game. And then, Matt Jeffrey really is a tough matchup as well. I think he's to my eye at least, their fastest player and probably their best dodger as well. And, he gets in on the fun with a goal in this game. It was a balanced attack for Notre Dame, right? I mean, they have 11 different players score goals. 4 different players scored multiple goals. So, on the Syracuse side, it was a lot of the shots coming from, Luke Roa, Finn Thompson around the cage, Michael Leo, Spallina. Whereas, for Notre Dame, I mean, you just look at the shot numbers. Yago took 11, obviously. He's their headliner. You're going to see that. But then it's just spread out the rest of the way. And it was just a very varied sort of attack on the Notre Dame side that Syracuse just couldn't handle down the stretch.
Not a lot of positives coming out of this 15-7 loss for Syracuse. Season's ending in the NCAA tournament semifinals. One thing I'm looking forward to, though, speaking to my good pal Nick King, who's down in Charlottesville. Got to watch that game up in person. Might not be that thrilling to watch that game for him, but I'm happy that we get to speak with him now, Nick. What was, I guess, the atmosphere like? And we mentioned, how the crowd might not have, been into it as much as you would expect for a tournament game. Was that the case in your vantage point as well?
Listen, I mean, you said it wasn't pretty to watch. I know, Nick, you're a big Philly guy, Rocky IV. This was like Apollo Creed versus Ivan Drago, especially in the 4th quarter. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. But listen, I thought the environment was pretty good. You have to consider the conditions here. It's high 60s, maybe low 60s, and there was a decent amount of Syracuse fans. Even before the game started, they were making some noise, but you could tell a little bit early on, like when these teams entered, Notre Dame entered with the bagpipes, and they were walking stern cold, staring straight ahead, very composed, and Syracuse entered a little bit anxious. They walked in pairs. Michael Leo kept turning his head as he was leading the line, making sure people were behind him, and then Michael Lippoliti comes over trying to fire his guys up. They get fired up. They run on the field. And then
Michael
the game
Jordan.
started, and then the game started, and Syracuse goes down 4-0, and the crowd never really had a chance to get back into it.
It's interesting, Nick, because with this team making the Final Four last season, the thought going into this game, from the Syracuse perspective was, okay, last year the moment was just a little too bright, right? This current senior class, they were juniors last year. They had never been to that point. They had never been to championship weekend. They were up against a John Tillman team that lives in championship weekend, and so they know exactly what to do. And the Terps just jumped all over them right away next year, and there was really no chance they could win that game. This year, the hope, at least, if you were a Syracuse fan, was, okay, they have that in their pocket now. They're not going to be wide-eyed and bushy-tailed going into this game. They know what this is about. They've been here before.
Exactly.
But they still come out and look flat out of the gate. And quite frankly, it might be just not as ready to play as Notre Dame did. And so I think that's what leaves you with your head spinning if you're a Syracuse fan.
Here's my thing, Nick. I never thought that Syracuse, if you were to ask me prior to this game who I thought was going to win, I would have said Notre Dame. I thought Notre Dame was the better team heading into this game. And we got asked by a WAER alum. Why? Because Notre Dame is the more complete team and it has the better goalkeeper. When you're playing playoff lacrosse, you need a supreme goalkeeper, and it was night and day between Thomas Ricciardelli and Jimmy McCool. Listen,
Ricciardelli's good.
He's insane. There were some saves he were making that were he was making that were just completely unfathomable for 99% of other goalkeepers.
That Anderson one right in front of cage.
Yes, yes. I mean, he was insane. But there were also just a couple mistakes by Syracuse. That's what really kind of set the difference for me. Kevin Corrigan has his team so well prepared day in and day out. And he said during his press conference, he said that it doesn't matter who steps up, he knows that somebody is going to step up, and his team plays so clean. Meanwhile, Syracuse played sloppy at times. You look in the first quarter, Finn Thompson on a 2-minute EMO makes an unnecessary behind-the-back pass, completely ruins it. Notre Dame scoops up the ground ball, kills the EMO. Also in that first quarter, Michael Leo on the doorstep with a wide-open goal, shanks it. 7 minutes in the second quarter, Thompson receives a pass, trying to catch and shoot at the same time, whiffs. I mean, these are basic mistakes, guys. Yeah. That's what separates a great team like Notre Dame from a good team like Syracuse. And although I wasn't expecting Syracuse to win, I can't help but say I was disappointed by the way they went out, just because it was, in all honesty, brutal. It was brutal. It was a brutal way to go out.
Yeah, it was. You mentioned the extra man opportunities, and something that I definitely want to talk about. Syracuse went 0 for 6 last week against North Carolina. Still scraped out the dub, but 0 for 6. I asked Gary Gate, I was like, all right, do you expect to get better against Notre Dame? And he was like, yeah, we match up a little better on the EMO than we did against North Carolina.
Which I just can't fathom.
Which I already hear Nick laughing because Syracuse goes 0 for 5 today on the EMO. And also, Syracuse doesn't score on a 2-minute unreleasable, doesn't score on a 1-minute unreleasable, both of those in the first quarter, may I add, and then gave up a goal when they were man up. They went -1 for 5. Not 0 for 5, -1.
It was pretty terrible to kind of witness all of that going down. And here's what I think, and this is also why I completely was shaking my head listening to that on the coach's report, was just because how Syracuse was the beneficiary in the first 2 rounds of playing subpar goalkeepers and subpar goalkeeping performances. You never expected that today against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's defense is the best in the country. It is insanely fast. It is well taught. It is well coached. It communicates perfectly. You could see it on the field, how each and every player, it's not just Sean Light, he's the star, but each and every guy on Notre Dame from the midline on is just completely beautifully calling out where to go. The rotations are flawless. And Syracuse just could not get into any sort of rhythm. And I think that's in large part just because Joey Spallina for most of the game was kind of MIA. He was limited by not just Sean Light, but by the entire Notre Dame defense. And post-game, they asked Sean Light what he did to stop Spallina over these past 6 quarters going back to their first meeting. And Thomas Ricciardelli cut him off and said, listen, Sean's not going to say it, but he just shut him down. I'll tell you what, Sean shut him down, and the entire Notre Dame defense did. I mean, it was just pure, beautiful technical lacrosse defense out of the Irish. And honestly, but you just can't let 5 EMO opportunities go like that. That's just, if you want to beat a team that's better than you can't make mistakes like that.
And if you want to call in, you can do so. 315-443-2011. Talk to Griffin, myself, that's me, Nick, and Nick. We got 2 Nicks. You could make it a third if you call in.
You're outnumbered.
Yeah, well, I feel a little outnumbered right now.
He's also outsized. I mean, Griffin's what, like 4'10"?
All right.
That might be generous.
I thought I don't want to bring up you. Hit some legs, buddy. Syracuse loses 15-7 in the NCAA tournament semifinals.
What does this one mean for Spallina, Nick? What are you thinking about right now when I say his name?
He's Phillip Rivers of Syracuse lacrosse.
Oh boy.
He's a great lacrosse player that never won a ring.
Better than Phillip Rivers.
That couldn't.
Better than Phillip. He's better than Phillip Rivers. I'll say it, Nick. Phillip Rivers is not.
Rivers,
what? You're calling him bad?
Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm saying Phillip Rivers is very good. But Phillip Rivers never won a ring. He never performed well in the playoffs, and oftentimes he would come up a little bit short in big-time scenarios.
Joey Spallina's played well in the quarterfinals twice, back-to-back years.
Wow! Oh, my God. They won a second-round game. Amazing. You don't hang banners for quarterfinal wins. That doesn't happen.
They're not
Phillip
going
Rivers
to
couldn't
get
even do
invited
that.
back to the Dome for quarterfinals W's.
You want to know why nobody considers Phillip Rivers a top quarterback in the 2010s? Because he may have won wild card games, but he never won the Super Bowl.
But you're still going to consider Joey Spallina one of the best players of the 2020s.
He's going to be of the 2020s. Wow, Griffin, real strong sample size there. Unbelievable
You're
stuff.
talking about some of the best lacrosse players to ever play. Have you heard of C.J. Kurz? I'm saying you can't compare him to Phillip Rivers.
That's exactly what I think he is. He was a great player that never won a ring. He's going to be a fan favorite for many. His name will be etched in the record books.
I would say Melo is a better example.
No, I disagree. Because at least Melo at one point could be considered a top 5. Rivers was never top 5.
But Spallina's a top 2.
I think
Spallina could win the Tewaaraton this year.
I think the point remains he might have lost that race.
He totally lost it to Tewaaraton. You need a Heisman moment, similar like you need a Tewaaraton moment, or I guess vice versa in that sense. And Spallina just didn't have it today. I mean, listen, and it's tough to say, but bowing out in your final collegiate game with no goals and 2 assists against the team that outscored you,
it's tough.
24-10 over the last hour and a half you guys played each other is flat out bad and almost sad to a degree.
But Phillip Rivers is
that's not ridiculous to say that. That's not mean. I love Phillip Rivers. But in all honesty, Phillip Rivers is not Drew Brees. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Big Ben. He's not Brady. He's not Manning. He's not the other Manning.
You also the college lacrosse time span is so much different than the NFL. It's not comparable.
It's a comparison. You're reading too deep into it. But in all honesty, the comparison rings true, Griffin. I'm not saying that Joey Spallina's out here playing 18-game seasons, 17-game seasons.
Here's
because he's not.
Here's the thing with Spallina. All he's talked about for 4 years. Okay, and we've given him his flowers for all the points. We've given him his flowers after all the great games, and he's had plenty. But all he has talked about is winning the national title.
I wouldn't say for 4 years. I would say for 2.
No, I couldn't disagree more. Yeah,
nobody comes to play for a team and doesn't want to win. It's been 4 years, Griffin.
But he hasn't been shouting to the media like he did it this season.
Well, it was hard to do it his freshman year because the team was so bad.
Yeah. And I think for as long as I can remember, it's been all the rhetoric out of his mouth has been all I care about is winning the national title here, hang a banner. I don't care about the points. I don't care about the records. That's great, and like he should say that. He should always look at it through the team angle and everything because you probably get ripped if you don't, and you don't want to come across as selfish. So I don't mean to play Monday morning quarterback here, but when you say that kind of stuff. And then the natty doesn't come after 4 years, that's when people are going to be like, okay, well, if that's what your words matters the most, then, what are we supposed to think of you? and I think, at a place like Syracuse where all the greatest players who have ever played here put on orange, and there are obviously countless, the overwhelming majority of them, from Tim Nelson, all the way through, from 83 to 09, the 11 national titles, in between through that span, great players leave Syracuse after 4 years with rings. And that's been the bottom line, and now he was supposed to be kind of the next great one. And
we're getting farther and farther away from that reality that great players leave here with a ring.
It's been a while.
This is becoming UCLA basketball.
No.
Yes, it is. They won rings in the 70s, and now they're maybe a 7 seed in the tournament and bow out in the round of 32. Well, at least Syracuse bows out in the third round. But listen, there has been no hardware that has been worth hanging a banner in Central New York we're going on 2 decades. We are nearing 2 decades. And this is supposed to be the most prominent program. Notre Dame has surpassed you in a matter of 4 years. They have a chance to win their 3rd national title in 4 years. The Ivy League is surging with young talent. That Yale team you beat is going to be pretty good next year. Harvard's not going anywhere. And Princeton, my God, do they look like a favorite in the national championship, which is saying something.
Yeah. All right. I mean, if you're looking forward,
it's hard not
in
to
terms
look forward.
of the talent that you expect to have on Syracuse next year. I mean, maybe you're in a better spot, you think, than Virginia, maybe, but even probably not. This team might have the least talent on paper in the ACC next season.
Yes.
So it kind of had to happen this year, you felt like, and yeah, I mean, it's just really, it's really. This is a tough one to swallow if you're a Syracuse fan, player, coach.
It's very frustrating. It's frustrating just as an observer. It's because this team has so much talent and it's such high expectations. And I remember the excitement that I had for this team after they beat Maryland.
I was on the dot. I said this is the team, famously.
Yes. And another loud and wrong moment from Griffin Bloomstein. We have yet to still see a time on this airwaves.
One of few, let it be known. One of few times I'm wrong.
One of many, Griff. Anyways, it's just so frustrating because that was less than 100 days ago. That was 99 days ago to the day.
Good math.
And
did you do that in your head? Or did you write it on your paper or use your calculator?
No, I actually tweeted it on WAER Sports
He
Talk
wouldn't,
on X.
He wouldn't have room to do that in his notebook. This guy's notebook is crammed.
Talk about a guy that
Have you
is
seen his GPA?
Studious.
I'm a smart guy, Griffin. That's why I'm very rarely wrong. But listen, here's the thing.
Buddy.
One guy I want to say that didn't bow out that we haven't touched on before we go back to the overarching view of this season that I just want to give some flowers to is John Mullen.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
Showed up when it
phenomenal. Showed up when it mattered all tournament long, even when he didn't win a face-off. There was a moment in the third quarter where Mullen loses the face-off, charges after the Notre Dame guy with the ball, knocks it out of his stick, forces a Syracuse turnover on the other end, the Orange score, cuts the deficit to 2. That's exactly what a leader and a guy that's hungry, and that's something I expected out of Mullen all year. And he showed up over the final 3 games, and I just think that if anybody were to bear the blame for this loss, and I don't think you can pin it on one guy at all, one guy you'd have to exclude is John Mullen.
Yep.
He was absolutely phenomenal. The effort, the technicalities, the overall just fundamentals, the efficiency, he was amazing. He was amazing.
He was. It surely wasn't John Mullen's reason or play that Syracuse lost this game for 15-7.
He looked like he really wanted to win the whole game.
Yeah,
that was the main thing I was. Not saying that the other guys didn't, obviously, because they did. But John Mullen played like, if we lose, this is it, it's over. He played that way the entire game, and I think you have to appreciate that if you're watching this from the Syracuse perspective.
I lived a few doors down from John Mullen this year.
Really?
This guy. His eyes were always completely wide. He was always totally locked in. He played like
he has tattoos, and that's the only reason why Nick likes him.
Yeah, you guys have that in common.
We do, yeah. He played like his life depended on it. Like he was going to go hungry if he did not absolutely dominate. Not saying the other guys didn't, but he was just he had that extra sort of motor, that second or third gear that just kept things churning. And he was the guy that was really firing up the Syracuse bench and giving this team hope. And I'll tell you what, in the first quarter, I mean, listen, it wouldn't have mattered in retrospect, but I'm glad he's okay. But in the first quarter when he went down with that non-contact injury, all I could think about was, oh my God, if he's out the rest of the game, what if? Because he was already starting off hot. He was going to be the only way this team climbed back into it. He was going to be what gave this team a chance. And he ultimately what gave this team a chance through 3 quarters before the fourth frame got out of hand. And guys, by the way, that fourth frame, we haven't barely even talked about it. Those 3 goals to start the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It was like a funeral. I mean, it basically was a funeral.
Was that the biggest moment of the game, in your opinion, that penalty by D'Agostino?
Absolutely.
And keep it quick because we got to cut you off in a couple seconds.
We don't want to kill him.
I pray to God, Griffin, because you're going to have nobody to
maybe on
play
Fortnite.
Play Fortnite with. Exactly. Anyways, I think that was the biggest moment simply because of how much the momentum shifted all at once. Syracuse cut the deficit to 2, and you're like, oh my goodness, the Orange can really claw themselves back into this one. And then the penalty happens, and you're like, all right, defense needs a stand, and McCool was already struggling. And then first goal, you're like, okay, 3 goals, still doable, 4 goals. And then the 5th one, it was just like, oh my goodness, this is getting ugly. And then the Syracuse bench just completely kind of toned itself down. They were all riled up heading into the fourth heading into the third towards the end of it before that penalty. Everybody, the Orange fans were chanting, "Let's go Orange," and it just slowly got noticeably quieter and quieter and quieter until the Syracuse team bowed out 15 minutes later.
Well, Nick, I've had truly a pleasure talking with you on these WAER airwaves. I'm sure it won't be the last time I get to do so. Hopefully a lot more of Nick and Griffin here on 88.3 FM.
What about me?
A lot, dude. I still got 15 minutes with you. Come on.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you so much.
It was fun, Nick. Thank you.
Nick, safe travels back to hometown, and thank you for joining us here on the Double Overtime. All right, we got just about 13 minutes left here on the Double Overtime. Plenty to break down. We still got our final words coming up, but Nick, before we take a little break, I want to talk quickly about where this team could be next season and just like our overall thoughts on where this season ended up. Is it a failure? Is it a success? And we talked about, I guess, Joey's career and tenure, who's obviously Syracuse's most well-known player and number 1 recruit just a few years ago. But overall season-wise, could you call this a failure, not making the national championship game?
Yeah, for sure. There's no I don't see the argument against. I mean, you made it this far last season. Those juniors are now seniors. This was supposed to be their year. At one point this season, very briefly, but at one point you were ranked number 1 in the nation. It was early on, but that was supposed to be the ceiling for this team. And it was the natural progression, right? The freshman season for the high school class of 22, you missed the tournament barely, but you miss. Then their sophomore year, you get to the quarters. Your junior year, you lose in the semis. This year was supposed to be, natural progression. You at least make it to Memorial Day, and the hope was to win the whole thing. And I think when you look at the landscape of college lacrosse this season, there wasn't a 2022 Maryland. There wasn't a 2025 Cornell, right?
No.
There wasn't a team this year that
had the best player on the team by far.
It's just unbeatable. Yeah. And it was, this has been a parity year in lacrosse. Coach Gate has talked about it. It's a year where, among the best teams, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. And if you're Syracuse, you were hoping that your talent would push you through to the finish line, in the national tournament. And they kind of spit it up today, really. I mean, they had their chance. It was a bad matchup. Notre Dame, I think, really matches up good against Syracuse. But it's a team I think, they could have beat. I definitely think the Fighting Irish are better, but I don't think this is a game that Syracuse, there's no version of them winning it. I don't think that's the case.
No.
So, yeah, I absolutely think the season's a failure. I think this team was very clear about their goals all season long. And if we're holding them to the standard, that they seemingly were holding themselves to all year, then yeah, they came up short, and the book's closed. So
Syracuse could have won this game. Syracuse should have won this game. And it being a 15-7 loss, kind of sums up the failure that, what could have been. And that's what it should be. We're coming up on a break here on the Double Overtime, the first and the last. When we come back, we'll deliver our final words and, give some shout-outs and thank yous for our coverage here of the Syracuse men's lacrosse 2026 season. It's the Double Overtime on WAER. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Find out what's going on in the local area. Tune into 88.3 WAER.
We want to create housing and green space and economic opportunity on land that has been scarred by the interstate for 60 years.
Our reporters are bringing news that makes you better informed and better connected to your community. Listen to WAER News every weekday during Morning Edition from 5 to 9 and All Things Considered from 4 to 6, or catch up anytime at WAER.org.
We hope you're enjoying today's game on WAER, but before we went on the air, more than a dozen of us prepared content, game notes, set up technical equipment, and practiced. These opportunities are so important for our professional development, calling the games, hosting, engineering, producing broadcasts, and digital content. But we can only do this with your help. If you're an alum who had the same experiences, or just a listener enjoying the game, help us out with a donation at WAER.org and click donate.
Flag flies. It'll go against Notre Dame. Anderson in front to Thompson. Backhand shovel shot goes. The fourth straight game with a hat trick for Finn Thompson. He does it in the first half.
Welcome back on the Double Overtime.
Such a good song.
Up until 6:30, we got just 8 minutes left to break things all down. Give our final word, say some thank yous, and talk about the Syracuse 2026 season. Nick claimed it a failure. I will agree. I think there were definitely moments of the season that showed promise, were very good, but in the end, the destination that Syracuse got to was supposed to be the national championship and a victory at that. It failed to do such, and I think I would say at Joey's standards, he would call this a failure, and hence I will ride with what Joey would think of this season. With our time left, it's disappointing that Syracuse will not have a chance to bring home Title 12 this year. Let's just touch on quickly next year's season, and you still have a lot of guys that will, binding some transfer portal surprises, come back. Jimmy McCool, John Mullen, Riley Figueres, Peyton Anderson, Wyatt Hoddle. Hope maybe Trey Deer will be back from injury, and so there's still some promise. You have some transfer portal news already. I guess the big question is, will Syracuse's coaching staff remain the same? Is there enough talent on this team?
Who's going to score goals next
run?
year? That's the question, right? You have goalkeeper squared away, and you have Fogo squared away, and that's nice, right? Like it's good to just
and a top tier long pull defenseman,
right? It's good to have those spots just kind of okay. We can check that box, and so Syracuse has that luxury, but. I mean, you're losing Spallina, Roa, Leo, Thompson. Like, just go down the list on offense.
1, 2, 3, 4. There you go.
So you're going to need leaps, right? From Peyton Anderson, from Wyatt Hoddle, from Bogue Hahn, guys like Matt Mackett. Like, you're going to have to really – we'll see what they do in terms of the transfer portal and how that plays out, who they bring in, the whole nine. But – the guys that are on this team right now that are kind of behind that crop of seniors on offense, those guys are going to have to take absolutely massive leaps if Syracuse is going to want to have a chance to really compete next season. Because, I mean, you know, take those 4 off this team. Who's scoring the goals? Like, that's who's facilitating the offense if you know, Leo and Spallina aren't out there. So that they have a lot of work to do in that regard. Like I said, you have McCool, you have Mullen, you're squared away in goal, you're squared away at the faceoff X, but on offense and in the midfield, you're really going to have to find a whole new crop of guys, and it's going to have to click fast if you want to compete, next season the way you have been these last couple of years.
All right, let's move into final words. I'll go first. In a college lacrosse world, in a college world where players are moving around and it doesn't impact lacrosse as much as many other sports, there is still one consistency, and that is supposed to be the coaching staff. There has been, in Syracuse men's lacrosse, history, staples, guys that you can count on to win you games. John Desko, national championships, assistant coach, head coach. You knew that he could win you a game with his mind. Roy Simmons Jr., the same. Roy Simmons Sr., the same. When you look at the Syracuse coaching group, there's 3 names. There's Pat March, there's John O'Derna, and then there's Gary Gate. The head coach of a lacrosse team is supposed to be the guy that sets the tone and sets the atmosphere for this roster. How they're going to win games, how they're going to score goals, how they're going to make stops defensively. And right now, when every other very solid lacrosse team has a guy that is leading the pack and leading the charge on the field, I feel like Syracuse doesn't, the way that it did with John Desko and Roy Simmons Jr. and Roy Simmons Sr. Gary Gate, the legend of the game himself, I'm not sure is quite fit to lead such a historic men's lacrosse program that is trying to get back to a national championship. I think Syracuse might need to make some decisions and go, I don't want to say in another direction, but there needs to be change with the roster that it's had and not a national championship.
This is not Coach Gates' finest hour. There's no question about that. So, you touched on him. I'll touch on the other big guy. Not sure if I have like a cutting, scathing take, but I'll just tell you how I feel. I'm really disappointed for Joey Spallina. It was kind of what I led with, off the top today, Griff. And I mean, you just felt like he was gonna be the player that was gonna bring the team back to the mountaintop. Now, is it mission accomplished in terms of bringing Syracuse back to national relevance? Of course, but we knew that going into this season. This season was supposed to be about getting to Memorial Day and winning that game, hoisting banner number 12. And for Joey to, walk on the field against Notre Dame today and leave it with 0 goals, and that's the last image of him in a Syracuse lacrosse uniform after 4 years, with all the hype and all the pomp and circumstance coming in with not only him but the whole class. It's just a really disappointing way to go out, and I feel for him because I do think he really wanted it really, really bad, and it's just not the way that you wanted to see it end for 22 in Orange.
Thanks for tuning in to the Double Overtime. I'm Griffin Bloomstein. That is Nick Evans. Thank you to our producer, Dan Shalom, our engineer, Augie Walters, and WAER Sports Talk Desk of Evan Simbita, Ella Armbruster, Zach Ventola. Next broadcast, obviously football season, Syracuse taking on New Hampshire. Thank you from all of us on a great 2026 SU lacrosse season from the WAER side. Not the result Syracuse wants. Falls 15-7 to Notre Dame in the NCAA tournament semifinals.
Beale Street Caravan has brought the sounds of Memphis to public radio airwaves for more than 20 years. And now you can see what we've been talking about. Check out our series of digital shorts through our website or go to ilistentomemphis.com.
I Listen to Memphis is about Memphis music today, the people who make it, and the places and culture that fuel it. ilistentomemphis.com.
Beale Street Caravan is also supported by awards from Memphis Travel, Tennessee Arts Commission, Arts Memphis, and the Thomas W. Briggs Foundation.
TennesseeVacation.com. The soundtrack of America was made in Tennessee.
Welcome back to Beale Street Caravan, where we bring you the best of Memphis music and culture straight to your ears. I'm Steve Selvage.
And I'm Thomas Crivens. Today we're showcasing an artist whose music is as dynamic and inspiring as the setting where we recorded her performance. That's right, Steve. We're talking about Alice Hazen and the Blaze, live from the Dixon Gallery and Gardens during their 2024 Art on Fire event.
Art on Fire is one of Memphis' most beloved cultural events, blending the visual and performing arts with great food and unforgettable atmosphere. This year's lineup included the fiery fiddle-powered grooves of Alice Hazen and the Blaze, and they certainly delivered a performance to remember.
Absolutely, Steve. Alice's sound is a genre-defying mix of rock, folk, and roots music, driven by her classically trained violin mastery. But there's so much more to Alice's story. As I mentioned earlier, she comes from Vermont, a place known really more for its maple syrup and mountains. But she made the journey to Memphis, Tennessee, and we're equally rich in culture, but with a decidedly different twist to it. Can you imagine trading snowshoes for barbecue?
That's quite the leap, Thomas. Alice's journey from Vermont to Memphis was also a musical one. She studied at Yale University, where she honed her classical violin skills. But when she landed in Memphis, the city's soul and energy pulled her into the world of improvisation and genre blending. Her music today reflects that fusion, combining technical mastery with the freewheeling spirit of Memphis.
That's right, Steve. Her latest works, including her upcoming EP, Dream of Rain, highlight global climate challenges. And her track, Memphis Sands, speaks to protecting the aquifer right here in Memphis. It's music with a message, and it resonates deeply. And you know, Steve, Alice has a knack for making serious topics relatable and even fun. I mean, who else could make an aquifer sound groovy?
If you're loving what you hear, you'll want to check out more of Alice Hazen's music. You can find her online at alicehazen.com.